from Busan too. Oh, hello everybody. Welcome to today's Middle Age Gaming live stream. Lots happening. We love that you guys have been enjoying our Stellar Blade shorts. Don't forget to check out the main videos. Stay tuned as well. You don't want to miss Adam's catch up on all things Stellar Blade. As usual, because of last week's success and you guys enjoying it, this week we're doing another week of Stellar Blade videos. This time we're focusing on the other video that Adam made about Mother's Fear, and I'll let Adam explain all about that if he has a few minutes on his side of the show. On Adam's side of the show, this week we're talking about Stellar Blade, as I mentioned. There was an interview with the game director and CEO, future of the game, also a little bit about their next game, which is not related to Stellar Blade. Sony's changing their focus, which could be good in Adam's opinion. And the studio behind Aggro Crab has another game called Peak. On my side of the show, we're talking about 007 First Light, which was released on the Xbox Games Studio. I have some opinions about James Bond. Also about Clockwork Revolution, which I thought looked really cool, but gave me big sort of Bioshock vibes, the most recent Bioshock, and Hotel Galactic, of course, which is my cozy game for this week that I have to talk about, which is going to be on my own YouTube channel as well. But Adam, tell us about Stellar Blade. What is happening?
Okay, well, there was a recent interview with a Korean web magazine called, I don't remember what it's called, what was it, Web something? I don't remember, and now my link's not showing it. But they did some interviews with the CEO, Kim Hyung-tae. Did I say that correctly? I don't know, I spoke Korean, speak Korean. And director Lee Dong-gi, I think. I don't know. I'm sorry if I pronounce your names wrong, guys. But before we get into that, there's actually a little bit of news about Shift Up themselves. So actually, it turns out that currently, Shift Up is 39% owned by Kim Hyung-tae, who is the CEO. However, right behind him, nipping at his heels, is Tencent with 34.58% ownership in the stocks. And there is talk that Tencent may be trying to get a little bit more control and gain control of the company. This has a lot of people worried because obviously Tencent is involved with a lot of gacha games, and Shift Up with Nikkei Goddess of Victory is the kind of company that they would typically want to have under their wing. But a lot of people don't like their practices with just like how much emphasis they put on the gacha mechanics and the way they, do the, I want to say nickel and diming, but that is definitely a very negative connotation. But the way that their pricing practices and that sort of thing have a lot of people worried about, because now that Shift Up has moved away from Nikkei and moved into Stellar Blade, it looks like they're going into more of your traditional kind of game model. And people are worried that a kind of, if Tencent got control, it could actually drag them away from that future and drag them kind of back into this gacha kind of thing. So some people are very concerned because they're like, I actually like the direction that it looks like Shift Up is moving in. But if Tencent gets their hands on it, they might actually, drag back that process. So yeah, and also this comes on the heels that it looks like Tencent is again, I mean, back in 2019, this was a thing, but this is a thing again, that they are looking to buy out Nexon. So if they, so it looks like Tencent's looking at a lot of Korean developers right now, or Korean publishers right now, and trying to take some control of that, which, not only are people worried about the creative direction in terms of gameplay and pricing and that sort of thing, but also Korea has its own visions on what games should be, what games should have, what kind of topics can be covered, and Tencent being a Chinese company obviously has very different opinions on that. So some people are worried about a clash of creative vision there when you have a country, when you have a company from one company bringing in their cultural opinions, and then you have the original company from their country with their own cultural opinions. So people are worried about a little bit of a clash there. But into the interview itself, this was with, like Korean said, CEO Kim Hyung-tae and director Lee Dong-gi. And they talked a lot about Stellar Blade. They talked a little bit about their company, and they talked a little bit about their next project, which we'll get into at the end of all this. So first of all, they said that there was actually quite a bit of story that they had to cut from Stellar Blade. There were things that they wanted to add, like for instance, one of the big things. I mean, it's not like a huge mechanic or anything, but one of the things in Stellar Blade that is really known for is just all the outfits that Eve wears. You know, she just can down. You know, you just find these outfits and she can equip them and whatnot. They actually wanted that to be a story element. So they wanted there to be they wanted to explain the reason why she changes outfits all the time and the reason why she can do it. So that was, maybe they're going to go into, why do you switch out from your diving suit to something else, So they wanted to add that had to get cut. And they also had to reduce several cutscenes. They said originally they were planning on telling the story. They said with these kind of action-oriented games, a lot of times, with story, it doesn't work as well when it's done in gameplay, because then you just kind of have your character standing there or kind of walking around the NPC while they stand still. They wanted kind of a more dynamic story, and the way games typically achieve this is through cutscenes. Well, originally they had far more cutscenes planned, but they had to cut some of them because, they were saying like, okay, this is getting a little too movie-like, we want people to, if you've ever played a Hideo Kojima game, you know what they're talking about. I mean, I think it was Metal Gear Solid 4 was the first time I played a Metal Gear, any game specifically, but, Metal Gear, but the first time I played any game where I entered a cutscene and I put the controller on my lap, and at the end of the cutscene, I picked up the controller and it auto turned itself off because the cutscene was so long that the timer on the controller where it says if you're not used for this long, go into sleep mode. So you might run into that situation. So they don't want things like that. So they cut some of the cutscenes. They pared down parts of the story that they didn't really get into. And he hopes that in the sequel that they're able to do a stronger job of telling the story. He hopes that they can really get into it, because unfortunately it looks like we will not be getting story DLC. So it turns out that they actually had planned to create story DLC, and they were getting all their ideas organized, and they were putting them all together, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then they also had the on the horizon that they wanted to do a PC release, so they were focusing on that. And so between these two things, eventually they said, just trying to get the story DLC together is just too much. We're just not gonna be able to do it. Scrap the whole idea and throw all those ideas into, or not scrap them, but take all those ideas that we were going to do in the DLC, throw that into the sequel. So we're not going to be getting any story DLC on Stellar Blade, which is very unfortunate because many people, myself included, were looking forward to that, and they had not directly said it was going to happen, but there were implications that it would be there. But now they're saying no, you're not going to be getting a story DLC. You will have to wait for the sequel. However, that should come. They're aiming for a release in 2027. So, it looks like we won't be getting any more story on Stellar Blade until 2027. And they also said that they're going to try to make a stronger story this time. So, much to my chagrin, I've made these videos and I've been theorizing like, oh, maybe this was Mother Sphere's plan all along, or, maybe these characters were secretly collaborating and, their goals align and that sort of thing. But, the director came out and he said, well, actually, we'll admit, the story was a bit cliche, which is funny because early interviews said, oh, this game is super basic, it's very simple. And then people that were playing the game were like, no, it goes much deeper than that. You just need to pay attention, myself included. And now it looks like the director is coming out, or the CEO is coming out, and they're saying, nah, it's just what you see on the surface level. That's basically the story. He said it's about, humanity versus AI. And the questions of, what does it mean to be human? That's it. The AI doesn't have some secret goals. It's just killing things. And humanity is not, have secret plans. They just did this. So they basically said what you see on the surface is exactly what it is. It's not deeper than that, which is unfortunate. However, they did say that they are looking to be a little more nuanced in the next thing. So it looks like basically what they might be doing is looking at some fan theories and that sort of thing and thinking like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Maybe we can apply that, or maybe we can take this, or maybe we can take that. So it looks like they actually didn't plan for a lot of these things, but they're seeing the potential in it, and they're going to be exploring that a little more in depth in the sequel. So that is that is interesting. Now, they did say that just because there's no story DLC doesn't mean that the 𝙂𝙀 DLC is going to be the last one. It's the last one planned. They don't have any more planned, but they did say they are open to other collaborations in the future, though they don't necessarily know what that may be. And they do say that future DLC or future content will be primarily focused on outfits. That's going to be their primary focus. Nothing new with gameplay or story or anything like that. Just basically releasing these new outfits. It's something that's relatively easy to do, and so they're planning on just adding some of that. And actually, the CEO said he was disappointed in modders. He said modders need to up their game. He said that he's seeing lots of great new outfits, but he doesn't prefer them over the originals. He said, no, I like our designs more. I don't think anybody's created something that I was like, oh yeah, that's better than what we made. He's like, no, I still think ours are the best. And he also said that changing some enemies, he's like, yeah, you change an enemy design, that's nice, but that's basic. What he really wants to see people do is add new gameplay elements. Something you might see in Skyrim, where you add a whole new weapon type, or you add a whole new set of skills that you can unlock, or like for instance Sky Oblivion, where you create an entirely new game with new quests and new story content within the game. So he seems to want people to add more of that, maybe adding, like, Eve only has the one sword and she only has the one gun. What if people add in different kinds of weapons? Let's see Eve with nunchucks and see an entire build around that, or something like that. That seems to be the kind of thing that he's looking forward to modders doing. So we'll see if that happens. There's going to be a big focus on outfits for a long time, I think. And they also spoke a little tiny bit on their new project, Project Spirits. So this was formerly known as Project Witches. And we don't know too much. All they said is that it's going to be Oriental fantasy, but they noted that when people think Oriental fantasy, we're thinking wuxia, we're thinking martial arts, you're thinking that gong sound, dong, that sort of thing. He said that they wanted to put their own spin on it, so it's going to be different. So it is going to be Oriental fantasy, but it's going to be kind of their new definition of it, or a different definition of it. So that's all we have, along with a picture. It has like 2 girls on it. I'm assuming they're protagonists, but we don't know. And other than that, we only know it's going to be coming to PC and coming to mobile. So we'll have to wait and see more information on that. But that's going to come after the Stellar Blade sequel. So that will be coming later in 2027, or possibly 2028, or even later than that. So yeah.
Nice. That was interesting. I mean, the only thing I'll comment on is just because I remember when Stellar Blade came out, and the former president of Korea at that time, I know he was the guy who was like, yes, I've come to realize that gaming companies like Shift Up are a core of the future of Korea. I doubt the new president is going to change that, even though they are they are a different side of the political aisle in Korea. So I still don't, think, and Adam and I were talking about this online, I don't see, I mean, like every country has a law where they're like, hey, yes, no, we don't think this is good for our country, we're going to stop you guys from buying it, right? And in globally speaking, that's generally applied to technology, or military industries, or like here in Taiwan, it's also been applied to semiconductors, of course, because that's one of the things we're strongest at, right? So, but I can definitely see, what is the company? Tencent saying, hey, if you don't let us buy this, we're just gonna sell it. We're gonna sell our stake, and we're gonna leave Korea, and we'll never come back again. And the Koreans will be like, okay, sure, see you never. This happened in the States with Huawei and Xiaomi, where because I was just listening to this the other day, where they were trying to sell their phones in the States, and this is back before when Chinese phones were allowed to be sold, and Verizon or someone told Verizon like, no, you can't promote these phones, and they never did, and Huawei and Xiaomi found out like, yeah, okay, well, if you don't want to help us sell our phones, we'll just never come. And so that's why it's very difficult to buy Chinese phones in the United States. So long story short, I don't think the only place I see Tencent making any headway in terms of buying studios in a particular country is Africa because of the huge Chinese presence there, even in South Africa where I live. South Africa's entire broadband infrastructure, for those who don't know, is entirely built by Huawei. So that's like they're, I don't know what the expression is, but they're really close. Anyway, but yeah. Okay, moving on to my first story. So I am a big fan of James Bond. Anyone who was born in a Commonwealth country like South Africa, India, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, a lot of countries in Africa actually. Like we watched all British TV growing up. I had 2 channels growing up, and then 3, and then 4, and then we finally got the equivalent of cable in like the mid-90s. But the thing that everyone loved was James Bond, and I think the only good James Bond was Pierce Brosnan. Daniel Craig sucked. He was too much of a muscular James Bond. He was like all action, no charm. Yeah, I guess. So, but everyone saw the James Bond game, which was being released by IO Interactive. And if you're not familiar with IO, you think Hitman games, right? So this is a really interesting take because it steps into the origins of James Bond before he became Pierce Brosnan. I'm forgetting Daniel Craig. Before the Martini, before the Legend, right? It's a fresh take on him, and watching the trailer, it does seem like that, right? Because and when you start up the trailer, like, man, the lady who is like British people say mum for something, I don't know why, but and they're like, man, Bond is terrible. He doesn't listen to anyone. He's too independent. Why should we give him a chance? That sort of stuff. So the cool thing about this, right, being IO Interactive, right, is you have that duality of, yes, you get to do missions in stealth. Yes, you get to do missions, full on action as well. Because I remember playing a Hitman game, and I'm like, screw this, I'm killing everybody, and I did, right? And I love that choice, and I love that Bond is not going to be like, hey, let's be a typical undercover spy and let's do everything stealthily. So you get to do stealth stuff, you get to do gunfights, you get to do a lot of the spy undercover tactics with the gadgets, right? We do get to see Bond play around with the watch, and the watch, he activates the watch and flame comes out of a motorcycle, which is really cool. You go to different places, mountain hotels, nightclubs. It's built on IO's Glacier engine, which I think is not great. I think you should be using Unreal Engine 5, being the best looking engine. I think Unity is also pretty decent, but Unreal Engine is to me is just the best so far, in my opinion, anyway. But Glacier makes sense because, right, like I saw this the other day, right, like CD Projekt Red were like, yeah, you know what, Unreal Engine 5 will run fine on the PlayStation 5 for The Witcher 4, but it's going to be run terrible on the Xbox Series S. Like they basically said, like, the next Witcher is going to be a console first game. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense, right? Because Cyberpunk ran horribly on the PC when it came out. I played it on the PC and it struggled a lot. So it makes sense to use their own engine, right? Because they can give an even experience to a lot of different places, right? So it does mention Switch 2, of course, right? But no Switch, that makes sense. So James Bond 007 First Light, I think we should get it next year if we're lucky. So keep an eye out for that. Add it to your wish list, whatever you want to do. And I'm excited for a 007 game. I never played GoldenEye because, as you know on the show, I never owned a console until I left South Africa.
I'm going to appreciate the irony of you saying that Daniel Craig is a terrible Bond because he's a bit too rough and tumble, and Pierce Brosnan is the better Bond because he's debonair, and then turn around and say, I like the idea that I don't have to be stealthy and can just run around pummeling and killing everyone. It's
Oh god, that is an irony. I didn't think about that.
You said Pierce Brosnan is the better Bond because he's this suave, debonair guy. I don't like Daniel Craig because he plays Bond the exact way I'm going to play this game.
I will separate that. In fact, it's like I loved watching the debonair Bond, but I'll definitely in games I play the Daniel Craig, which is yes.
Daniel Craig is the better video game Bond, and Pierce Brosnan is the better movie Bond.
Exactly, exactly. That's a
I
pretty good
came in,
argument.
yeah, my first Bond was Roger Moore. Was
Oh, same. When we were the same age, I watched Roger Moore. I liked Roger Moore. I liked Sean Connery. I didn't like the guy before Roger Moore.
is it, uh
You know who I'm
Timothy
talking
something,
about?
right?
Yeah, Timothy Dalton. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Timothy Dalton, and yeah, Roger Moore, Sean Connery, Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah,
Favorite
yeah.
ones.
I just enjoyed when you said that. I was like, this is a little ironic.
I didn't even think about it until you mentioned it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, no. Yeah, this game is super reminiscent of Uncharted. It looks like the exact same style of game. I mean, obviously it's different. It's a different story, different character, and that sort of thing. But it does look very much of that kind of mission based. You know, you move from here to there, and then you kind of progress through the level, and then the story will progress the character somewhere else, kind of that Indiana Jones style thing. So, I enjoy those games when I play them, but I don't typically seek them out. Usually it's more like somebody's like, hey, you know, you should play this game. And back in the day, it'd be like, here, borrow my CD. And I'd be like, sure, yeah. So I don't think I'll be playing it. But for people that like that, yeah, no, it looks like it'll be pretty good.
I just wanted to get back to Uncharted. I remember playing it, and I was struggling with the puzzling aspect and the movement and climbing and scurrying along the ledge, holding off to get to this point, that sort of stuff. It was still brilliantly voiced. It is definitely an amazing game. So it's something I need to get back to. So I'm hoping this won't be too much of that aspect of things. The Tomb Raider games were the same, where like I think by the time I played the third one, I finished the latest Tomb Raider games. And on the third one, I'm like, man, I'm just so over all this puzzle stuff and figuring out things, and I just gave up. But speaking of something that is not a puzzle, tell us what Sony is changing or possibly changing.
Yeah, so Sony recently came out and they did on Push Square, and they basically came out and said, we are changing a bit of focus, which personally I think we've been seeing ever since Jim Ryan left. A lot of people didn't necessarily like the last State of Play. I personally really loved the last State of Play with all the games that they were showing and whatnot. Because a lot of people are saying like, oh, you know, we're not getting these big blockbuster titles. You know, we're not getting these huge tentpoles. But I liked it because I felt like, to me, it felt like PlayStation was getting closer to its roots. You know, they have their like Everybody Loves Golf or whatever, and some of these smaller, kind of more experimental type games and things like that. There was the one from the creators of Journey, that sort of thing. So that's, to me, is, you know, growing up with Parappa the Rappa and Katamari, and you know, for me, PlayStation always, you know, it had these big games, you know, like Horizon and God of War, but for me, it was more about like kind of a platform to kind of experiment and have some fun. I think Nintendo's kind of taken over most of that. So anyway, in this article, they were basically saying that the question is, you know, PlayStation fans are typically older people that were, you know, they're in their 30s, they're in their 40s, you know, they were fans of PlayStation growing up, and, you know, they've stuck with it. But with younger audiences, they're definitely drifting more towards Nintendo, you know. So what is PlayStation looking at in terms of the future and staying relevant when, you know, as their current fan base gets older, you know, what are they going to do to kind of stay relevant and get new, younger fan bases? And so Sony came out and they said, well, part of that is newer franchises like Horizon Zero Dawn and Astrobot. They said Horizon Zero Dawn actually had a lot of appeal to women. It said that a lot of the fans are female players. I said with Astrobot, you get a lot of younger people, you know, that Nintendo crowd, as they were referring to earlier. And so by creating these new franchises, they're actually trying to appeal to new audiences and draw them into the PlayStation community. And then, from that's how they're going to be maintaining, things in the future. They're going to be building this kind of new fan base. They're still going to have all the old fan base, all the old stuff. They actually also released a picture recently, and the picture was divided into 4 parts. And it said these studios are focused only on single player games. So studios like Sucker Punch, Naughty Dog, these guys are focused on single player games like their Uncharted's and the Ghost of 𝙎𝙪𝙥𝙦 and that sort of thing. And then they had their multiplayer focused studios like Bungie, and they're like they are only going to be focused on multiplayer games. They are not going to be focusing on single player games. And then they had their kind of multi-vision studios, so like the one that they showed, I'm trying to remember which one was it. Now I can't remember it, but it wasn't Santa Monica. I think Santa Monica was in the single player ones, but there were where they're going to have Guerrilla. Guerrilla was in that one, so you have your single player focused games like Horizon, but we also have the new Horizon multiplayer game coming out. And then they had their secondary studios that don't belong to the PlayStation, but they are working very closely with. And one of the examples was Kojima Studios. So, with Death Stranding and stuff, and whatnot. So they're basically saying like, okay, with Jim Ryan, it was like, okay, we want to push into this live service thing. We want to really grab onto trends. And it looks like now they're saying, nope, we're going to have studios. We're going to look at studios. We're going to say, what are you guys good at? What do you guys want to do? What do you guys know how to do? And we want you to focus on that. We don't want you to diversify outside of what you know how to do. We want you to focus on what you know, what you're good at. And so that's really interesting. And then also, there was one other thing. Oh, and then also they're saying that they want to expand into other forms of media. That's another way that they're going to try to get new audiences. So for example, we know that Sony obviously owns a lot of movie IPs and things like that. They now own Crunchyroll. They're trying to kind of consolidate their presence in the anime market. So by releasing, new anime, new movies, and tie-ins to games, so if you create, we created an Uncharted movie, maybe that one didn't work out so well, but with the success of Mario movie, and the Minecraft movie, they're like, well, maybe we should, maybe this isn't something we should completely abandon. Maybe there's still something we can do here, and maybe we should, make some cartoons for children that focus Astrobot or something like that. So if you're my age and you grew up in the '90s, you might remember the Super Mario cartoon or all both Sonic the Hedgehog cartoons. So they're looking, maybe we should go in that direction, create some new things like that, get some people in, and they're like, oh yeah, I like this TV show. Oh, there's a video game for it. Oh, that's really cool. I want to play. So that seems to be their focus moving forward. I'm personally really happy about this. I think this is great. It kind of reminds me of the early days of PlayStation. So I'm excited. Maybe not everybody is. Some people are like, oh, we want you to focus more on the big ones like God of War and stuff like that. But I don't know. Let us know what you think in the comments. Are you really kind of happy with this new direction? Or do you think that maybe they should just let Nintendo have their slice of the pie and PlayStation should just pick a different pie? I don't know. Yeah, let us know in the comments.
I mean, to me, like when you told me about the story before the show, the most interesting part to me is I've seen the rumors, and we talked about it as well, of the potential of PlayStation 6 being like a portable thing where you can hold it or you can dock it. And to me, I think that is the future of gaming, where especially if you have kids, and not even if you have kids, like you talked about a lot of younger people liking the Switch. I even think people our age, like the Switch is the key market for casual gamers, which are the majority, right? While they may not be spending the most amount of money on buying games all the time, they are the people who drive up those numbers so that the original Switch, right, is now beaten the PlayStation 2 as the most units sold ever, because these people buy it. They're like Bella, right, who you met, right, who bought a few games, and like when she sees something culturally hot, she's like, okay, I'm gonna go back and play my Switch, right? That's it. Otherwise, she might not touch it for 6 to 9 months or a year. She's not a regular gamer like we are. I gotta get my game in, and you gotta get your game in. Others we end up grumpy, right? I was feeling that yesterday. So I think what PlayStation needs to compete on is this mobile hardware. Like, oh my God, we're going to grandma's house in Mount Hall, right? Or it's school summer vacation in 2 weeks, right? We're gonna go visit our auntie or other side of the family in Taipei for 2 weeks. So let's bling around. Kids are occupied. Where it's easy for, hey, I just got off work, right? I got off work, took my kids to Bushiban, came back home, prepared dinner. Now I've got 30 minutes to game. And the easiest thing is to pick up my portable PlayStation, which I feel like I want to say PSP for some reason, and play a game for 20, 30 minutes rather than turning on the TV, logging into the PlayStation network, playing a game, waiting until I find a save point, right? Like it's much easier, I think. And again, I'm very biased, as Adam knows, because I do love my portable.
Yeah, that is not my PlayStation experience.
Exactly. Like it's like for me, right? Like I turning on this, logging into Windows, right? Typing in my password, opening up Steam, launching a game is too many steps.
Yeah, no. PlayStation is really just press the button, PlayStation wakes up, it picks up the game where I left off. It'll automatically turn on the TV for me as well. So really it's just pick up the controller, beep, and then ready to go. And then when I'm done, I just press the button, press down, scroll over to the right, hit go to sleep again. Done.
So that is cool as well. And then that is exactly, so I didn't know anything about a PlayStation experience, right? But I think it also comes down to the fact that you're forced to sit at a couch, right? And now you're going to say, oh, you can stream it to your PlayStation Portal or stream to your PC. Yes. But then you still, in the case of the PC, you're bound to the PC. But I think many people don't associate the PlayStation with the ease of mind of being able to game anywhere, anytime. So, I mean, that's why I'm excited about this as well. I think Nintendo needs a competitor in the portable space. Xbox came out with the ROG Ally Xbox version. And even then, we don't know prices about this yet.
Sorry? 800.
Oh, it's 800. Okay. They also, then it's the same price as the regular ROG Ally. But then again, it's still Windows. It's still an Xbox system, right? It's still not going to be as competitive as the Switches in terms of just overall reliability of games, reliability of the experience. So I think Sony can bring that and compete, but they need to make sure that excellent PlayStation experience is delivered when they launch, and they need to make sure, like Nintendo did, do that whole little anti-scalping thing as well. But yeah, no, I'm excited about the hardware, less excited about the organization of gamings into different quadrants.
Yeah, I saw something recently where they were talking about two things. One, they were talking about the Xbox portable, and they said actually Microsoft was planning an in-house portable, but now that they're doing the collaboration with the ROG, making the Xbox version of the ROG, they've scrapped that. So now it's the collaboration between the two. And then the other thing was that the PlayStation portable, the rumored PlayStation portable device, they're saying that actually what it would do is it would take, you would still have like your traditional PlayStation, like the big blocky one that's going to be super powerhouse. And this one would be, and then they would have games would almost be like Steam verified, where they would have to say like, okay, this game is compatible, and the games would actually, they would pare them down to be compatible with this device. So, you know, they might reduce resolution or things like that. So you'd be playing a smaller version of the same thing. So, which personally for me seems like the best solution, because yeah, I'm like, okay, yeah, I mean, portability is good, but I would rather get the most out of my system. You know, I don't want you to be like, well, we're gonna, you know, I wouldn't want to sacrifice the extra power for portability. Whereas other people are like, well, I'd rather have the portability than the extra power. So I like the idea that we can have both. You know, we can have a Switch and we can have a PlayStation. If PlayStation just copies Switch and everybody's the same, I find that to be a less exciting world.
We'll have to discuss this at a later point. We'll move on. My second story for today is Clockwork Revolution, another really interesting game. that I wanted to talk about last week, and I just didn't have the time, so we're talking about it this week, right? So I saw this, and I did not watch the trailer. I did not do a lot. I did not. I did not do enough research about it. To me, watching it a little bit, because when you mouse over a video on YouTube, right, and you can sort of watch a little bit without actually playing the video, which is what I do a lot of times, especially on my phone, especially on PC. So I watched the trailer like this, and I'm like, okay, this looks like a Bioshock game, very steampunkish. I'm like, okay, that looks cool, but it really reminds me too much of Bioshock and how they're gonna get away with this. But it is quite different, right? Because it has that time element, and if you remember the game going back 10 years, Singularity, which I loved. Like, I thought that was such an innovative game, and I wish more games would use that sort of time component. But this game does it, right? So you have a chronometer to travel to the past, change events, and see how they reshape the present. I love that, and I love time travel a lot. And that's why I love the very first Life is Strange game, because of the whole time travel aspect and altering the present by changing the past. Awesome. Back to the Future, one of my favorite movies ever. Um, so of course, that's the most exciting part of this game for me. Then there's the world of Avalon, a mechanical metropolis, right? And you see that in the trailer with lots of machines and moving parts and gears and cogs. And in this world, right, the wealthy replace limbs with clockwork, and you also have, of course, some nasty other power that sort of looms over society that, of course, you're going to fight against. You've got that whole typical RPG slash FPS fusion of, yes, have guns and shoot things, but you have skill trees. You have things to upgrade, more health. This thing activates when you press this key, that sort of stuff. You have character creation with Steam attributes, and Steam sounds so familiar, but Adam, I'm going to ask Adam to explain that to me after I finish talking. Developer legacy and platform exclusivity. So this is made by Inexile, right? Those are the guys who made the Wasteland games, and I played Wasteland 3. And I started 2, I never finished it. But they're doing something very different with Clockwork Revolution, which is kind of exciting. And of course, this game being a game coming out in 2026 is going to have all the things that we're dealing with at the moment, right? Class warfare, minorities, majorities, that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of stuff I'm excited about for this game. I can't wait to play it next year. What did you think when you saw the trailer? I was, like I said in the beginning, I was initially put off, but after watching the trailer, doing a little bit of research, I'm like, man, this is gonna be cool. I'm definitely gonna play this next year unless something even more exciting comes up, but time travel is always on the top of my list of mechanics I actually want to play. So Adam, what about you? Tell me, what is Steam? Why it looks so familiar?
Okay, so I had to look it up. I had no idea. Steam is the same thing as what Special was in Fallout. So each one, so it's social, technical, endurance, agility, and then magic, basically.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, so those are your stats that you can improve on and whatnot. Yeah, so yeah, I was like, I have no idea what this is. And he's gonna ask me. I better look it up. So.
Yeah. What do you think about Clockwork Revolution?
Yeah, no, I remember seeing the original trailer for it when they first announced it, and it looked really interesting. And yeah, it looks very Bioshocky. But looking at this trailer now, I'm like, it actually looks a little more like maybe Avowed or that sort of thing. It looks a little more like open world, like Bioshock. It's like open zone, but it is very guided. There does seem to be a very specific path, and then maybe it is still that way. I mean, you can't really tell too much on that from these trailers, but I don't know, just the way the characters move, the way they're like running, jumping in and out of windows, and all that. It looks a little bit different. So yeah, it looks very much like Bioshock. You have your powers and whatnot, but it looks like maybe a slightly more open-ended Bioshock. Also, the idea that you can go back and change the past and stuff. To me, Bioshock was very much about telling a very specific story. They really, this is the story we want to tell, and you're exploring it. But this idea of like changing the past and stuff makes me think maybe a little bit more open-ended, like Avowed or something with multiple endings and that sort of thing. So Yeah, looks good though.
Nice. So, running up to date, what has AgroCrab done? Have they secured funding, by the way? Are they in a better financial
It is
position?
released.
Oh,
It
I,
came
I know
out like a
AgroCrab was
day ago.
released, but I mean, like, I guess because you said like
You mean
they talked
AgroCrab
about
is
their
the name of
next
the
game.
company? You mean Another Crab's Treasure?
Another
That came out a
AgroCrab,
long time
yes,
ago.
yes. AgroCrab, like, is their financial situation better? Because I remember you
Oh,
talked
right.
about
You
it.
know, yeah, no, a long time ago they were talking about their financial situation. I mean, it was kind of tongue in cheek and whatnot. But if you look at this game, it's actually pretty simple. So I guess the funding for this one wasn't quite as intensive. This one is a lot more open ended than the previous game. I would even argue their previous two games. So maybe you've heard of AgroCrab, maybe you haven't. I first heard of them because I played Going Under, which I absolutely loved. Fantastic game. It's a dungeon roguelike. You know, you go down in and you pick up weapons as you go, and you upgrade as you go, and you know you can kind of unlock like permanent buffs, or you can you know, like for instance, pick instead of being, you know, you can pick one buff to go in that's not randomized or that sort of thing. So that was their first game, and then they came out with Another Crab's Treasure, which was kind of a Souls-like, but you know, very tongue-in-cheek, very you know, kind of a sense of humor and whatnot. If it's too hard, they even let you equip a gun, so that makes life easy, right? Well, anyway, they came out with their third game, which I had no idea that they were even working on it. You know, I haven't really heard anything from them for a while, and then just one day they came out and they're like, "Oh yeah, our new game Peak is out today." And I was like, "What? No, you guys released another game and you didn't tell me? Oh, how dare you guys? How dare you?" So rude. But anyway, this game is kind of really interesting. It's in the same kind of vein as was it Going Up or Chained Together. In this game, you play as you can play with your friends. You get 4 customizable characters. You can try to change their faces and whatnot. You have proximity chat, and your goal is to climb a mountain. So there's this big mountain that you can climb up a bit. You know, you've got stamina meters. One of the features that they say is there's lots of questionable food. So you're gonna need to eat to keep your stamina meter on, but eat the wrong thing and you might have some negative results. You're gonna have to manage things like injuries and whatnot. So you're gonna have to, you know, if one person is hurt, you know, you need to take care of that. They also show that you can like carry each other. There's lots of different items you can use, like for instance, climbing lines, and you can put spikes, climbing spikes in the walls to help yourselves climb up and whatnot. They show an item that looks like a mushroom that you throw at the wall, and it creates this kind of like what do they call them in Chinese? Like tree ears? I don't know. It's kind of the mushroom. It's like one of those flat mushrooms that grows out of a tree, so you can do that to climb up. But what's also interesting is that this is a little bit like a roguelike, kind of. So the way it's going to work is actually every single day, they're going to change the island. So every day you get a new island, and you can climb that island as much as you want in that day, trying to reach the top or whatnot. But then when you log in tomorrow, you're getting a new island. So it's not different every single time. So if you face a challenge and you can't do it, you're not like, ah, no, you know, you can try it again and you can pick your own paths and, you know, and you figure out a way up. But then, you know, tomorrow you're going to have a completely new island. So I think that's really kind of an interesting way to do a roguelike. You know, typically instead of every single run is unique, you're like, okay, well, you have a time limit and you can run it as many times as you want in that time limit, see how far you can get. And then, you know, hopefully you'll make it to the top. And if you don't, you know, or even if you don't, you know, tomorrow there's going to be a new challenge to try. So I think that's a really interesting twist on the genre. So yeah, I'm kind of I'm torn on this one. It looks really fun. I really want to play it, but they do say it is designed to be play multiplayer. You know, you can have up to 4 people. They say you can shake down the challenge alone if you want, but you know, it's going to be much harder because you're supposed to work together. So, and then they also said that you're supposed to do a match with friends. So I don't think there's any random matchmaking right now. So that is unfortunate. And so unless I can find people to play with, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this one. But I don't know. I think it's only out on Steam currently. Yeah, it's only out on Steam currently. But maybe if it comes to consoles, I can convince my friends to pick it up and we can add it to our repertoire. So.
I was just looking this up because I had seen this on YouTube. YouTube has gotten a lot better at recommending game trailers to me, which is nice. I get to see a lot of new games. It looks really cool, really cute, and I mean, the Taiwanese price. I don't know what the American price is, but
So cheap.
yes, like $3 for this. Like this is a great. Um, my brothers and I were playing Aliens Fire Team Elite. I always forget the name of this, but and we are at the final mission of the DLC, and we just died. And we're like, okay, we still have another 1 hour. We can play some games. Like, this could be a great filler game. Like, let's try something cool and fun. And 30, 40, 50 minutes. I don't think it could be that long. And let's have a go at it. And I mean, even if you're a potential streamer, I could see you like, okay, I'm doing this thing solo. Like all those people will do that in Elden Ring, right? Like, okay, I did this game by myself, even though it's meant for 2, 3 people. Um, so it looks really cool, cool art style. Reviews are positive, 342 positive reviews when I looked at it on Steam. Um, a lot of people are suggesting matchmaking would be nice, and I think they should have released the game with matchmaking. So like you can play this with like randos on the internet, right, and have chat. But I know that is that requires some functionality to build all that stuff out. But yeah, very impressed, and hopefully this game gets the attention it deserves.
Yeah, yeah. Looking at it and the fact that it went under the radar, I mean, it's definitely possible that I just simply somehow missed it. I mean, I never heard of Balatro until it showed up at the Game Awards, and I'm like, what is this game? I've never heard of this. And you guys are like, what are you talking about? This game's super popular. So I'm not going to say that just because I didn't hear about something doesn't mean it's been not been a big thing for a super long time. But yeah, it did kind of, to me, it felt like a bit of a stealth release, and it is only $3, and you know, it does seem pretty simple in the mechanics. So yeah, maybe if I had to guess, because you were talking about their kind of financial situation in the past, if I had to guess, I mean, there's definitely the possibility that they were like, okay, we need to think of another game. And so they were kind of doing a brainstorming thing at a meeting, and somebody came along and they're like, well, what if we did this? And they're like, actually, that sounds pretty simple and pretty easy. Let's just throw that together super quick. And then you know, it's going to cost us next to nothing, because it's you know, it's not going to be a difficult game to make. And then, you know, maybe we can get some people in and get some you know, funding that way. So you know, I think that's very possible.
Yeah, no, and I agree. And looking at this compared to another Crab's Treasure, like totally different, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that being said, right, these kinds of games do sometimes can have the opportunity to really sell well. Like Adam and I were talking about um, Chain Together, right? A very simple game someone made in a game jam, 72 hours, right? Or Going Up, Shift Up, no, not Shift Up, Going Up, you know, where you have to jump up and like it's just somebody put a whole bunch of random things, right? And as you're going all the way up and you fall down, you restart all the way from the bottom, right? Like, I mean, again, another simple game that made the guy like $500,000, right? um Impressive. So hopefully it works out.
Yeah.
Okay, and my last story for today is escape to a magical interstellar bed and breakfast. Hotel Galactic invites you to revive a galactic gem and craft your own cozy community-driven story. This sort of reminds me of Cozy Dragon Cafe, which is, I think, one of the very first games I bought on the Switch. Which, again, you're like, oh my god, if you're just watching Creator for the first time, you're like, this guy was talking about murdering people in 007, now he's talking about cozy games. How does that work? Apparently it works in my brain because like I'm playing Dragon Age Velgard and I'm really enjoying it, but I'm like, man, I need a break. I need to play something cozy, and I'm kind of desperate at the moment. So in my spare time, I'm trying to figure out what kind of cozy game can I play. Um, this is a game that was a Kickstarter late last year or early this year. I think it was late last year. And last year I went on a bunch of Kickstarters. I did way too many Kickstarters. So I saw this. I'm like, nope, nope, stop, control yourself, Crane. Do not kickstart another game. So I did not kickstart this, but I'm still gonna buy it. So what are you doing, right? You're restoring a rundown hotel, you're decorating and catering to alien guests in a heartwarming simulation experience. The cool thing though about this is the art style, as usual, because I do love like very colorful, very bright. It is a Studio Ghibli. Adam knows how to pronounce that word. And so it does look really, really beautiful. It's got very sort of serene spaces, nostalgic charm, especially if you grew up watching a lot of movies, those sorts of movies, like when we grew up watching. So what's happening? You're helping somebody called Gustav find redemption and uncover heartfelt stories through guest interactions. So this is very similar to what I've seen like in the last year to 2 years, where there are games where, yeah, this is a cozy game, but the coziness in a sense is discovered by talking to people like, oh my god, this is a single mother. Oh my god, these two people fell in love, and they're, you know, celebrating their love together at this place, right? Like it's there's a bunch of really cool stories, which again might clash with my lack of story, but like for me, a lot of these games is just sort of like doing tasks, accomplishing things, decorating things. I'm not a big story person, but if you do like story, this might be something for you. So it is launching on July 24th. So by the time you actually watch this video, it'll be in early access. So keep that in mind. So it's not out yet, but if you are looking for something new, something different, this might be the game for you. Check out some live streams, check out some videos. I'm very sure this video will literally be out next week on my channel, maybe later on Middle Age Gaming if we have time. So another cool thing about this game, a lot of cozy games, when you finish the story, it's just done. This game has a sandbox mode where you just start over and it's restore the hotel. No story involved, just do what you want to do, which is kind of cool as well. Hotel Galactic Ride coming out roughly in about a month. Did you check it out? Did you watch the YouTube trailer? Have you been following this game? Let us know down in the comments. And that is it for me. I can't wait for it.
It reminds me a lot of the other game you talked about, where you're like at a lighthouse and you're trying to build like a little town, and both above and below the water. That one.
Oh my god, that sounds very like there is a similar game which I literally
Yeah,
just
and all the
played.
characters are animals again. Yeah, I don't know. It looks a lot like that.
Okay, cool, cool. Yeah, I don't remember, but nice.
Yeah, I also looked it up because I wasn't quite sure if it was supposed to be Ghibli or Ghibli, and apparently it is. So it's originally from the Italian word Ghibli, but when they named the studio, they're like, "Well, we're gonna make it sound more Japanese, so we're gonna call it Ghiblis."
Oh, okay, cool.
So
Good to know.
technically both in a way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So apparently they named it Ghibli. Ghibli is, I guess, the Italian word, I guess, for hot desert wind or something like that, or maybe hot desert. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, they took the Italian word and they named it, and then they were like, well, it's hard to say in Japanese, so we're just gonna give it a Japanese pronunciation.
Very nice.
There's your
All right,
trivia.
sir. Anything sort of round off today? What
You don't have any
streaming this week?
Reddit questions or anything, or
No, not today.
okay, sure.
Are
Then
you still
no,
playing
not really. Yeah.
Doll's Nest? Or streaming Doll's
Ah,
Nest?
yes, no, I am still streaming Doll's Nest, and I'm loving Doll's Nest, and it's getting ridiculous. Not
Ridiculous
because
as in hard or ridiculous
no, it's not hard. It's not hard. Just like some of the choices and the designs and stuff that they're doing are just kind of like really, like, they're not silly, but like the way it works out is silly. Like I was yesterday building I bought some like really heavy tank parts, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna build this really heavy tank. And it turns out, like, in Armored Core, you have your core, and then your core creates a certain amount of energy, and then all your parts require a certain amount of energy, and then all the energy that's left over goes into your energy regeneration. So if you're using a lot of really energy intensive parts, your energy is going to regenerate more slowly, and that sort of thing. Well, I built a mech yesterday because I was like, I'm just going to throw a bunch of heavy parts on it. I built one where the energy output, or the energy consumption for just the basic parts, was so high that if I was sitting still, I could recharge my energy, but if I was just moving, it was just like slowly like tick 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 tick.
Oh,
So
no.
like so my energy, my standby energy usage was in the negatives. And I was like, what is this? Why am I able to do this? It was very silly. It was very stupid. But I'm really enjoying it. When I first started, it was a little bit difficult, and then I got easier, and then I got to the third zone, and it's called corrosion, but it's basically poison. It was a heavy corrosion zone in that area. The first part of it got really annoying. But then some people come on stream because there are these enemies that just spawn and spawn and spawn, and suddenly I'm like, where are these guys even coming from? I'm running out of ammo, just killing them indefinitely. Or because in every other level, there was a set number of enemies. So I was like, where are these guys coming from? And then in chat, people came in and they're just like, actually, there's an invisible spider that you have to kill because they manufacture these things. So then once once chat got in there, I was able to take that out, and I was like, oh no, now this level is fine. So, enjoying it. I faced off against a couple of bosses. I'll get into them and I'll be like, oh, my current build is not going to be able to do this. And I have to go in and tweak my build, but then come back, and it's pretty trivial. Yeah, no, really loving it, really enjoying it. I guess I'm getting kind of close to the end, but we'll see. And then, yeah, apparently there's several endings. I think it said 4. I might be wrong, but there's multiple endings, and the game is designed to be played on New Game Plus, and you can unlock some new stuff. So, looking forward to that.
Hey, Death Stranding 2 is out next week?
Yeah, the 26th. Comes out in 9 days. So, yeah, so I'm of two minds. I'll definitely be playing Death Stranding. But I'm debating whether I want to stream Death Stranding and kind of play Doll's Nest off and on, or if I just want to continue streaming Doll's Nest and then play Death Stranding on my own time. Simply because we've been having a pretty good reaction with Doll's Nest. I'm getting people in chat pretty regularly. We're getting people that are interactive and that sort of thing. And Death Stranding is going to be huge, which means there's going to be a lot of people streaming it. So I'm just wondering if maybe it might just be better to continue streaming Doll's Nest and just focus on the more niche audience. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you are the solo streamer for us.
I think I might do that, and then yeah, because I'm definitely going to be playing Death Stranding. I'm just not sure if I'm going to be streaming it or not. I don't think I'm going to be making any content for it. I was planning on making content for Expedition 33, but then by the time I was able to get around to it, it had already been out for a month, and everybody else had already made like tons and tons of content for it. Which is great because I mean the game blew up way bigger than I think anybody was expecting it to. So it's great for the game, but for my intended purposes, it's like, and suddenly there's a lot more competition. I'm gonna have to up my game if I want to create something that's gonna be noteworthy. So then it was kind of like, maybe it's just better to skip that one entirely. I think Death Stranding is gonna be in the same boat, so I'm gonna maybe skip that. I do think my next game that I might end up streaming though is was it 1000X Resist? I think, I don't know. It's kind of a story-oriented game that caught my eye on Steam, so I might check that one out.
Cool, nice. Very good. Then, as I think I mentioned last time, so this week's stories are going to be down at another date. I'm pretty sure this week's stories will probably either be in November or December of this year, or when Adam. So there's like 3 times. There's a week where I'm going to be moving from this place to another apartment. And there's going to be, I guess, 2 weeks or a week and something where you're going to be in Virginia.
Yeah, I mean, it might be like 1 week, but we might like leave on Monday and return on Tuesday or something like that. So
yeah, so there'll be a week where Adam's not going to be around to do all his amazing camera stuff that he does for our live stream. And there'll be a week in December where possibly we might both be off, or I might just be off to play games with my brothers towards the end of the year, but we'll see. Very cool. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. Thank you for the support. We crossed 950,000 views. We're on our way to 1 million views. I'm gonna put down a graphic or something like that. Something thank you for. Maybe we even do a short video from Adam or myself, right? I'll be like, hey, thank you for 1 million views. I'll talk to Adam about that later. And yeah, we'll be back next week, right, for another boiling hot summer show. Me without air conditioning for the moment, and Adam enjoying his nice, cool atmosphere. All right, thank you guys for tuning in, and see you same time next week. Take care.